Great. So yes, welcome back to this Thursday night class, and a very warm welcome on the live stream to people across, well, wherever people are alive, across the universe. Why not? Really, really warm welcome. And really warm welcome again, Bodhidasa. And thank you for joining us again here.
I am delighted. Before we start, I just want to acknowledge you all for coming out tonight in the cold. I also want to acknowledge that being here is due to those who've come before. I really want to acknowledge our teacher, Sangharajita, who was a huge influence on me and on our community, my preceptor and member of the college, Ratna Vyuha, and also Nagabodhi, who've been huge influences on me and helped shape what I'm going to share with you tonight. And I'm very happy to be here. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Bodhidasa. Well, we're delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Great. So yes, approaching Enlightenment, a guidebook for Buddhist ritual.
The cover does a lot of the heavy lifting, I have to say. It's a beautiful cover.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's fantastic.
It's by Aloka.
Oh, is it?
He painted it in 1975, and I'm really impressed by the vibrancy and energy of it. And I asked, thinking he would never say yes, and he said yes straight away. And though he's still waiting on a copy of the book to come to him.
Oh, wow.
To get onto that.
Fantastic, great. Well, I've only been with this book for a short while, really, and I'm really, really looking forward to spending a lot longer with it. I've got to say, what strikes me first of all, really, about this book is just, the parts I've read is just how well it's written. I work as an editor, and I notice these things, and it's just beautifully written book. It really is. I haven't read it all, so when I finished it, I might change my opinion, but I doubt it.
Oh.
I think it's sorry.
I'm happy to receive notes.
Exactly. It's just really beautifully and really clearly written, and I really appreciated that. And really, I think first of all, we're here tonight as part. Well, obviously we're here to host and to see you, and I'm also here as part of the meditation challenge tonight.
Yes.
And there is this I guess a very interesting relationship between meditation and puja, but I suppose ritual in general. Can you say anything about that relationship in your experience?
Well, it must be quite anomalous if you're part of the meditation challenge to have some random Australian turn up and say, let's talk about ritual. You might be wondering why and what's the connection, and am I just here because this was any date that they had? Yes. But also, I think there can be, in many people's mind, a false distinction between meditation and this thing that Buddhists do, this thing called ritual that we do. And I think the problem is the word meditation. Yeah. Because the Buddha didn't. This is a big call I'm about to make. The Buddha didn't teach meditation. Oh, gasp! The word meditation is a really flawed interpretation of what the Buddha taught. Meditation comes from a Latin word that means to think upon or think about. Yeah. What he taught mostly was something called bhavana. Chitta bhavana, the cultivation of the heart. Bhavana means cultivation. Chitta bhavana, metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. The mindfulness of breathing is a kind of bhavana. Yeah, it's a cultivation of awareness and attention and what we might call mindfulness. So meditation is not a great word, because when I think of to think about, I don't think that's what I'm doing when I'm meditating. I'm not thinking about, I am cultivating something. So, false distinction. I think meditation is a difficult word, but we use it because everyone understands the word. But ritual and things called puja, has anyone done a puja before? Hands up. Okay, maybe I should have said hands. Who hasn't done a puja before? Who hasn't practiced? You've never practiced puja before? What's your name? Cal. Great. Thank you. That's so helpful. You've never done a puja either? What's your name? Roger and Cal. I'll do the best to avoid the jargon. All right? Puja means act of worship. Okay? That's one definition. So, if the Buddha taught bhavana as a predominant practice, what is this kind of ritual? What is this doing? What is it cultivating? What is bhavana cultivating? Well, to do a ritual, you need to be very prepared. You need to have the things, both internally and externally. Attitudes, perspectives, aspirations. They need to be gathered and cared for, as well as the candles, the flowers, the incense, the Buddha statue. The inner and the outer needs to be carefully managed, not just slapdash thrown together. So there's an element of mindfulness. And there's an aesthetic appreciation in that, which has an element of beauty, the way in which you arrange a shrine to put something together. And then, so I think there's a cultivation of awareness and mindfulness in the preparation. There is a cultivation of beauty. But there's also a particular cultivation, there's a kind of sila bhavana in ritual, sila meaning morality or ethics. Throughout a ritual, particularly what we call a puja, there's times for you to reflect on actions and to look with honesty and integrity at yourself and also at other people. And I might go through the stages of the puja maybe later.
Let's do, yeah.
So you're also generating an ethical sensitivity doing this ritual. So you're setting it up carefully, mindfully, cultivating a sense of beauty and care. You're doing an awareness, you're having an awareness of your inner state, the things that you do well, things you don't do well. And there's a really important bhavana, a really important cultivation that's happening in ritual, is that particularly a Buddhist puja, is you are cultivating an open-heartedness for all beings. You are doing this not for you, not for the feels, not to have heightened states of consciousness, but in essence, at its heart, a Buddhist ritual is for everyone. The heartfelt expansion for everyone. It's not about you. And that's a wonderful thing to be cultivating. An open sense of solidarity and care for everybody and all things and all beings. A Buddhist ritual at its best is moving you through those different kinds of bhavana, those different kinds of cultivations. Has that adequately addressed your question?
I think it's beautifully addressed the question, yeah. And it gives rise to another question.
Oh, please.
If I may, yes. Yes, so the cultivation. So I mean, I think sometimes when people come, I mean, certainly myself, you know, when I come to meditate or I come to ritual, sometimes I feel as though I almost feel as though I need to have cultivated a state to bring to these rituals. But I mean, what's the question? I suppose the question is, can I trust that I'm entering into a space in which to cultivate without feeling as though I have to have cultivated, you know, anything in the first place?
That's a really good question. Do you have to purify yourself before you sit in front of the shrine? You know, do you need to be pure before you make an offering? Is this kind of at the heart of what you're getting at?
I think that's exactly what I was trying to.
Do you need to be the best you can possibly be, the squeakiest, cleanest person you can be, before you place your heart on what you're doing in a Buddhist ritual? The answer is no. Because a Buddhist ritual, particularly, and I keep using the word ritual, I'm mostly talking about this puja, practice of puja. You are cultivating attention where you are and who you are. All of you is present. All of you needs to be present. I can think particularly of a time very early on in my own practice. And I came to Buddhism through, not the door that, well, actually a door that many come through, but some people come through the door of intellectual curiosity. Some people come through the door of friendship. Some people come through the door of sort of an activist spirit. I came through the door of self-hate and addiction. And there was no way I was going to be worthy enough to sit in front of this. There was no way. I had been brought to understand that every fibre of my being was flawed, and there was no way I was going to be clean enough. And I didn't want to do a puja. I honestly didn't want to do it because I thought that Buddha would judge me as unworthy, as much as I judge myself as unworthy. And people said, just give it a try. And I remember reciting the first verses of the Sevenfold Puja, which is all about beauty and gifts and generosity. It's offering flowers and lamps and all these lovely things. And I can't offer these. I can't touch these. I will sully them. Lamps encrusted with jewels. They're not jewels. They're going to be diamantes, if anything. If I'm offering them, sorry if you like diamantes. But you know what? When I did it, I cried. Not the first time I did a puja, but when I eventually got in, I cried, and it was my tears that cleaned everything. Because I was being authentically present, who I was in that moment. And before I knew it, I was prostrating. And before I knew it, I understood that it is the purification. It is the being present and releasing. It is coming closer and closer to the things that in my heart of hearts I cherish and I wish to share with others. So, I think particularly over time, I'll finish on this bit, that I'd done something pretty unskillful about an hour earlier. Something that I judged really poorly. And I just went and I just sat in front of the shrine before the puja and cried. I just sat there and cried it out. Then I was ready to go. Yeah. So you don't need to be perfect to puja. Puja is the perfecting.
Wow, it's just really beautiful, Bodhidasa. It's really lovely. So this, so it's not therapy. We're not taking our personalities, our difficulties, our joys, and our sorrows to ritual in order to have someone, the Buddha, someone else sort them out for us, are we? We're you said you took it and your tears purified you. So there's an emotional connection that's not therapy, but is it something about humbling oneself to.
Well, there was no large bill at the end, so it definitely wasn't therapy. It's therapeutic, in as much as the mind is seeing the self and is seeing the patterns that bring the self into being. Yeah, to that extent, it is kind of therapeutic. But the thing that makes it not therapeutic is that it's not looking at you solely. Buddhist ritual is not looking at you solely, looking at yourself, looking at your problems, looking at you, right? It is about expanding the boundaries of you, expanding the boundaries of others and the way you see others, yeah, and expanding the limitations that you place on yourself and others, bringing you much more open into an approximation, at least, of what it means to be in the presence of an enlightened, expanded, and luminous mind. At its best. Sometimes pujas are really boring too, but the process is about this alchemical. There's an alchemical change happening. But you've got to bring all of yourself there in the first place, which we were talking about earlier. You've got to bring all of yourself, and you may not be willing to do that.
And so we don't need to bring all of ourselves in one go,
Oh God, no.
So we go with the sense of open-heartedness, I guess as we begin puja or any kind of ritual, so we go with an open heart, and then as you said, we'll come away and we'll reflect that urge to think, I'm not good enough, or I've got. I've got a dodgy ethical life, it's going to stop. So that urge might re-emerge, might come again.
Oh, of course it will.
But there's something about faith, what we just kind of... How do we maintain a faith about going to puja?
Look around you. I think that's really important. I don't mean literally. Look around you. I think that's something that's important to realise, is that someone in that room that is with you, that has been doing that chanting, they have struggled. and they have picked themselves up, or have been picked up by others, or have been inspired by that which is phenomenal to lift themselves up. So I think be aware of the others around you. You know, one of the things I love to instruct people in or guide people to do is when you're engaged in puja, listen. Listen to the yearning. Listen to the hope. Listen to that reverence that comes in the voices of others. Don't be the loudest person in the shrine room. Gom mani padme hum gom mani. Listen to everybody. Listen to that. You know, you are not alone. People around you have struggled. They've struggled to understand. They've struggled to learn. They've struggled to connect. They've struggled with their own mental states or with loneliness. And they're still here and they're still going. Listen to that. Let that inspire you and lift you. Does that answer your question?
It answers my question. I mean, again, very expansively and very and more deeply than I thought it might do.
Gosh.
Yeah. I suppose just a word perhaps about our tradition, our Buddhist tradition here, Triratna. I mean, I'm curious about. I'm kind of hoping other people are going to be curious about the position of puja or the position of ritual in our tradition. So it's not so much a question; it's more a sort of nudge. If you've anything interesting to.
Do you want the ideal and you want the frequent reality?
Which one do you want?
You want both?
Both.
Okay. Now, as far as I understand from the tradition that I'm part of, that many of us are part of, the ideal of Buddhist ritual, particularly the sevenfold puja, which is a ritual in 7 parts, is that it is intended to collectively and individually open us up to have an expansive heart and intention for everyone to be free of that which holds them back, which we often shorten as enlightenment in one way. And the words come from an ancient text that we revere. The structure comes from an even older text, which I go into in the book, which I discovered, which was very exciting to discover. And its place is to be a kind of the lifeblood that pumps our meditation practice and that pumps our study practice and that pumps our friendships. In a sense, it's meant to be this kind of the heart, that it lifts all of us together. That I think's an ideal. Does that sit well with some people? Okay, but I think often, and I'm coming specifically from a context where in Australia, I'm not descended from convicts, just to be clear. I know that because I've traced it. And I think that in the context that I'm in, many of the people that I practice with, puja is this thing that we don't talk about. Ritual is this thing that somehow if we talked about it, or even if we, God forbid, tried to decipher it or understand it or analyse it and try to explore it, somehow that would sully it, somehow that would do something that would cheapen it. But mostly it's that added thing that some people like and most people don't. It's a thing that you do. You do it at the end of a retreat or the end of a night, and if it's the sort of thing you can get out of in some cases. And that just kind of blew my mind, really, that the thing which really kind of, this ritual that is intended to build we call the bodhicitta, the will to enlightenment, this thing can be this optional extra. I wanted to know why. How did it get to that? How did it get to be the sort of liturgy that happens that some people get and some people don't, or they endure? I didn't understand how that happened. And I didn't want that to still be an issue for people. And I wanted to write a book that would help people go from where you take your shoes off all the way through to what's happening after the concluding mantras, and try and weave in some ways to access that that aren't definitional but are exploratory. So within our tradition, to get back to your original question, I want it to be reinstated, in a sense, as being really central. Devotion, ritual, puja as being central, that the other things are given life from. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's great. And yeah. So you talk in the book about the shrine. And about the item. I just wonder if this, we have this sort of, you were talking about that you were getting towards this kind of dual sense of having a deep reverence for puja, or ritual in general. But I get the impression you want us to move away from sort of holding it so preciously that we don't talk about it and don't bring it to mind as central to our practice. It shouldn't be an esoteric, rare, precious practice at the same time.
I think there's a false distinction there that you might be making, is that the idea that something precious can't be explored.
Yeah.
Like that it's this sort of placed upon the shrine like that, and we don't talk about it and analyse it and what might it mean and how might we approach it because it's so sacred. I wrote the book for people who have questions and they have never had the courage to ask those questions. They don't know what Amahung means. They don't know why we take the shoes off. They don't know why we sit opposite a statue. They don't know. They just take it because that's what we do. And I don't want to... Something can be still precious and beautiful. I think of some of the poetry of, say, Walt Whitman that comes to mind. For me, some of that poetry is just incredibly precious. And I look at it, but I also, because I'm trained in English literature and semiotics, I can pull it apart, but that doesn't mean that it's less precious. There's the idea of ritual being so esoteric and only for the initiated I think that's not necessary.
No, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. And I often wonder whether sometimes it's because people don't know, and so they give it a mask of mystery because they don't even know themselves. And the number of order members I've met over this tour, this is the last stop in my tour, by the way. I've been to Dublin, in Inverness, but Midlands, everywhere. A lot of order members ask me questions that I'm thinking, really? Really? And I do think we've never really gone into it as much. Bante's book is a phenomenal book, Ritual and Devotion in Buddhism. That is such a expert and thorough and erudite analysis of the words and the meaning of the sevenfold puja. But there's still parts that are functional, that aren't present there and not explored. And I hope that the book is a kind of companion piece to that fills in some of those gaps. So that it's precious, but also purposeful and able to be done.
I think that's lovely, yeah. One thing I've really loved about the book, or the early chapters anyway, that you do take us into this universe of magic, this magical universe, and we perhaps haven't got time to sort of go into the deeply into the chapter on magic, but I think that's what you're doing. You are opening up ritual for us. You are saying it's magic. There's myth and there are archetypes and there's mystery, but in a sense, it's just a case of us practicing and uncovering this magic. It's there for us. And
I hope that the book does that. It's trying to walk a line between this means that, which I find really reductionist and cold and tight. But there's some things do need to be explored in that way. And also exploratory exercises. Each chapter has things to do and try and explore, and to do so again and again and again, so that you kind of feel a sense of, I have efficacy here, I've got agency here, and I can go and talk to members of the order about it as well, and now I'm going to move on to the next part. So it is a course that takes a magical approach. I think for the last, say, 15 years, some of us have been focusing on the Buddha more as a scientist, the science of the mind, meditation becoming more of a science. And I'm no offence to anyone who thinks that way or approaches the Buddha as a scientist, because you can do that. I wanted to say, yeah, but he's also a magician. Yes, he's a scientist. He's also a magician. Both of these are not contradictory. So maybe that doorway is an option for you to see the work you're doing as a kind of alchemy, the work you're doing as a kind of process of transformation. Like me crying in front of the shrine. Alchemy. Seeing. Releasing. Being better.
That's lovely. Thank you, Bodhidasa. So I think now we'll have a tea break. I mean, I'd love to revisit the explosion of magic after the break. But in fact, after the break, I think we'll open up the class to the audience, and we'll have a period of time where Bodhidasa will take questions, I believe, and perhaps reflections, and speak a bit more about this wonderful book. Great. So let's have a cup of tea and let's come back in after the break. Yes. So in this half, we're going to. I think we just open up the class really. I think Bodhidasa is inviting you to any questions, any reflections, anything at all really, based on the last hour or so, and I think you'll take those questions on board and respond in a way in which you.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is to gather the questions and have each other hear the questions that are offered, and I'll collect the questions and I'll do my best to address them collectively if I can. So I just find it really helpful. It gives me time to think and you also time to hear the questions. And just to be clear, no question is too silly. Okay. What really matters is how considerate the response is to that. So I really would like people to ask questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will tell you. I don't want to faff about. Okay? So I'm not an expert. I'm a practitioner. So I will ask you to tell me your name, because names are really helpful. So does anyone have a question for me? Yes, and I do know your name is Gabby.
Thank you. Because you just signed my book, which I've just bought, which is beautiful. I have a question. Do you have any comfort for any ex-Catholics or people who don't feel very spiritual or reverent, who haven't made that connection, might see it as some sort of superstition? Because when you experience your first sevenfold puja, it does have remnants of something like mass. So are we worshipping a god because we're bowing, we're offering things, and here is this big statue that we're bowing to? Is it the same as a Catholic mass? And also, I'm going to be greedy. I see that the title of the book, I've just noticed, is Approaching Enlightenment. Do you think we can approach enlightenment through ritual?
I will address both of those questions. Thank you, Gabby. Hope we all heard those questions. They're really, really interesting. Thank you. Yes, hello.
Hi.
Please
my
spell
name
me.
Carolina.
Carolina.
And my question was we've been talking a lot about rituals and maybe sangha and community. I was wondering if rituals, specifically puja, can be or should even be done on a personal level. So is there any limitations or dimensions when it comes to the amount of people, or the community sangha has to be physically there, or can one do it in the space of their own home, or like in basically kind of like, I don't know, like backpack it through their life and take it, and you don't really necessarily need a lot, but just more of an individual state, if that makes sense. Maybe those are two questions in one, but yeah.
Very happy to address that. Yeah, thank you, Carolina.
Hi, My name's Paris.
Paris?
I wanted to make a statement as opposed to asking a question. I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
I just was reflecting on something that you said about how you came to ritual, which I thought was really interesting because I'm always curious about what brings people to this space. And for me, I came at it in a very similar place, slightly sort of depressed and a little bit insular and a little bit, poor me. And sorry, I may not articulate this greatly, but I just wanted to say that for me, you really said something quite beautiful about how, you didn't say it in these words, but it's something about ritual allowing you to step out of your own way, so that you're then able to look at how your practice can benefit other people, but you're not thinking about that when you first come into it. But actually, for me, that's what was therapeutic about it. I was suddenly able to not just be locked into my own depression and my own, this is me, this is my cloud, but actually it just, something about benefiting all beings and something about spreading that and that metta. And if you're depressed, you don't feel it, you don't feel your heart center, you don't feel anything. It's just a very numb place to be. And I just feel that through years of practice and doing the puja, it softens, opens, and just becomes something that's for everybody. And I think that's something quite beautiful. I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Thank you for... Yeah. That's a great gift, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Bodhidasa. My question relates to how the sevenfold puja specifically ends. And that is, all the way through you follow a very logical sequence of things, attitudes of mind and practices, and it culminates for me in the transference of merit, when you deliver all the merit that you may have obtained from doing it to the benefit of everybody. And then you invoke in Pali or in Sanskrit the Akshobhya and Vairocana and Avalokiteshvara and Tara and so on. I never altogether understood quite what that is. It sounds like an aesthetically nice flourish at the end, but I don't quite get what the symbolism or the effect of it is, except the pleasure of singing, which is quite considerable, if you like doing mantras.
I wish I'd used the word in my book, aesthetically nice flourish. I love that phrase. That's beautiful, Robert. So that last thing was about, you said something about singing?
Yeah, well, it's a nice exercise in singing, and then it ends up sadhu, 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 and it sort of tails away, and it's very nice, and it's rather like a distant caravan of people leaving, and it evokes all sorts of colourful images, but I wonder how it came to be there, and if it has a specific intended function.
I can answer half of your question, not all of it, but I can try. How are we going for time?
I think we've probably taken enough
Got
questions now, and we'll crack on. Yep.
I might start with Carolina.
Yeah.
Sorry. What I hear in your question is a couple of things. I hear, is it personal and individual? Is it community and collective? Yeah, and I hear in there perhaps a kind of, should you? Should you do it by yourself? Is that okay to do it by yourself? Yeah. Is there there's a bit of am I allowed to do that? Is that in there?
It's more to do with the idea that I've been practicing Buddhism a lot by myself, but then I felt quite lost in that journey because it was a very it was really like, oh, I have certain values and certain beliefs, but I haven't really found a community to share that with. Specifically in the way, like, at least I come from Spain, so there isn't like a big Buddhist, you could say, community. Is mainly Catholic, and it's a very, it's all of the rituals, all of gatherings are all very heavily, you could argue, Catholic civilized and everything. So, and because Buddhism has, you could argue, similar but practices values differently, I felt, am I even practicing Buddhism if it's by myself? And I travel a lot, so it's like, can I even take it with me? Is it a practice I can do whenever and with whomever? Or but then when I came here, I deeply found a root within Sangha, within community. But then this question stems from like a question of dualism. Like, does it?
Yeah.
Can it be? Can it be everything and can it be everything, or is it just a certain dimension, or does one even lose a certain sense of practice when it's individualized? I'd say.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a question that we at some point all need to come to. Yeah. So I do puja every day. Yeah, I do the first part of the puja in the morning and the last part of the puja in the evening. And in between the rest of the beginning to the end, my day is lived out, bookended by the first three verses, first three parts, and the last. I do that by myself. Yeah. But one of the things I'm very conscious of is that I try and bear in mind, whilst I'm doing the practice by myself, that my late father and my late mother, I try and bring a sense of my ancestors to being part, yeah, as they live out through me and as I recollect them, yeah. And I also recollect my preceptor, and I recollect Ogin Sangharakshita, my teacher. So I'm never alone, yeah. And when I'm doing puja together, when people do puja together, you're also doing it alone. You are the one who is going for refuge. You are the one who is looking at the inventory of your actions. You are the one who is bringing into being and connecting with that which is beyond you, the qualities of Avalokiteshvara, or the qualities of those that we'll come to in Robert's question. You're alone, but if you listen, in the listening you are connected to all of those shared aspirations. Yeah? And doing it together, you may feel a sense of solidarity, you may feel a sense of commonality, you may feel that sense of a common striving, as Eric Fromm talks about in the nature of ritual being a common striving based in shared values. Yeah? You may feel that in the space. Yeah? And that may spur you to realise that you're not alone. But we all are alone. Yeah? So so there's a false dichotomy there. Yeah. Okay. The other question, the other aspect, does that address that?
100%.
Yeah. The other part was about, I sense it was more about the material things that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There's only one shrine that you need, and it's not this. It's in here. Yeah? What is the moment where your life transitioned and shifted from where it was in Catholic Spain to what it is for you now? Yeah? Honour that and cherish that. That is your shrine.
Oh, that's really powerful. Thank you.
That is your shrine. Yeah? There's moments of insight where you've seen through something. They're your candles. The thing that you've done for others, the actions you've taken in the world, there's your incense. However, this is awesome.
Yeah, very much so.
Right? Because everyone in the room, individually, but with you, is seeing it. But they all see it differently. Okay?
Very good resonates. Thank you so much.
I kind of want to go to Robert now. That seems like a nice but I can only answer half your question. I actually don't know, perhaps other order members who are more senior than I will know how the concluding mantras appear at the end of the sevenfold puja. I don't know how they come to be there. But I have a taste of why they're there. Yeah? Because they're you. When everything else has been taken away. Your nature is Avalokiteshvara. Compassion. Our nature is the wisdom of, the wisdom of Manjughosha or Manjushri. Yeah? The energy and urge to break through and to protect that you have in you, that we all have, is Vajrapani. Yeah? That ability to help and guide others towards freedom and to keep us from fear. That's the best in us, which is Tara. And so on. So by the end of the puja, think of it like the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. There's nothing left of you. You've given everything up in that final stage. May the merit gained in my act. You give it up. There's nothing left of you except these qualities which you are emanating. You're not invoking them. You're not summoning them like a sorcerer. They're already present in us and beyond us. That's a point I like to make in the book, is that we often like to have this duality that, here is Avalokiteshvara, an image, that we often like to analyse into submission. Yeah? Avalokiteshvara is not an image. Avalokiteshvara is an action. And the capacity in us, the capacity in each of us to be present with the suffering of ourselves and be present with the suffering of others, proves that compassion exists in the world. It proves that Avalokiteshvara is in the world. This image is a code of how to be like that, how to act like that, how to connect with that quality. But we all have it within ourselves. Avalokiteshvara exists within and without. It exists in all of us and beyond in other beings that can be compassionate. And so at the end of the puja, nothing is left to hold us back from being what is, in essence, essence is a hard word to use in Buddhism, what is the potential for us. And as much as the singing can be beautiful, as much as that can be really uplifting and delightful, it's much more than that. Have I addressed your question, Robert?
You have, thank you.
Okay. Gabby. Catholics. Okay. I'm not a lapsed or recovering Catholic. I'm actually a recovering pagan. So I was a Norse pagan for 16 years before being a Buddhist. So I know a thing or two about magic. I don't know very much about Catholicism. So I'm sensing that there were, as we were talking earlier in the break, there's things in Buddhist ritual that is quite, to use the language of modern language, triggering, perhaps? Yeah. Particularly that one, that wonderful verse that I'm sure many of us will know. The evil that I have heaped up through my ignorance and foolishness. Evil in the world of everyday experience. Yeah? Ooh, that's a cracker, that word evil. Isn't it? It kind of pushes you right out of what this puja is about, right? Because me complaining about my cold latte angrily at someone isn't evil. Isn't it? Evil's genocide. Evil's electing incompetent people. Right? It's not me side-eyeing someone in a meeting, wishing that they would drop dead. Right? Yeah, that's not evil. So the problem is that the words get in the way. The words get in the way. And the images can sometimes get in the way. Yeah. Because one of the things that we do, there's a technical term for this. It's called, when you're moving from one religion to another, they talk about conversion, but the concept is, it's called something switching. I can't think of the word. It'll come to me later. Something switching. And we kind of think that candles in Catholicism, therefore, because they're there, they're the same in Buddhism, right? An image in Catholicism is the same as an image in Buddhism. Yeah, and that's normal, because that's what we know. Yeah, we only go with what we know, and we have to work into it based on what we know. What's really important in those situations, and I have a very funny example of this. When we're in these situations, we have to be aware that we are meeting our past. We're not meeting where we are. Yeah? And one of the reasons you've probably not really understood or you've not come to terms with what happened in your past is no one gave you a space to talk about it. No one gave you a chance to tell your story. No one gave you an opportunity to listen to the fact that you didn't like this Jesus, or you didn't like Mary, or you didn't like these things. No one allowed you the space to be irreverent about the things you were supposed to be reverent of. So the thing that I think is very important and I'm speaking particularly to the order members in the room, when people have reactions or freak out or they don't want to do it, invite them to tell their story. Invite them to say what this means to them. Invite them to be vulnerable around it. And then don't jump in to try and say, well, what really it means is this. People need to feel their story is heard before they're willing to move into something new. Yeah. Does that address your question around reverence?
Yeah, and obviously this thing of if we bow, this idea that we hand ourselves over to some sort of external God, you know, when you're first very, very new to Buddhism and you think you're working, it's basically about meditation, you're working on your own mind, Sangha's great, you do lots of study, it can be quite, you can come to it initially, you know, from a very heady perspective, and all of a sudden, you know, you're met with high mass, and you know, you think, you know, it's like worshipping a god, and I think that confused me in the early days. Let me put it that way.
It can really confuse you. Can I tell you my funny story, which is not about Catholicism?
Story, yeah.
So the very first puja, how are we going? Oh, good. Very first puja I ever attended. This was after I'd been practicing. I'd taken Buddhist ordination, a lay ordination with a Taiwanese order, and we did 3-hour chanting in Mandarin. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had awesome robes, and I had no idea. But yeah, it was just wonderful. Anyway, I went to my local Buddhist center, and they had a Friday night puja. I didn't know what a puja was, so I went along. And I met this man who reminded me of the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, you know, Osho. He was this grey-haired man with this huge beard that came down to here, and he was the only one there. So already alarm bells are going, right, this is a cult. And so he says, we're doing a puja. I said, who's we? Well, me and you, no one else has turned up. And so I sat in this room, this building I'd never been to, with a man who had a weird name, I had no idea. And we sat opposite each other, and he started the puja. We did the verse together. I was like, okay. And then he started chanting, Om Mani Padme Hum. And I burst into laughter. Now, you might think, why? You had Catholicism, I had Doctor Who. And there's an episode from the 1970s starring John Pertwee, in which a whole bunch of English Buddhists who have a big house in the country. They have a teacher who's terrible. They do yellow face. It's so embarrassing, but it was then. They sneak down to the basement, and they stick the Bhava Chakra, the wheel of becoming, on the ground, and they all sit around it and they go Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and they summon a giant spider from outer space.
Of course.
Whereas you have reactions to images maybe of Jesus and Mary. I'm laughing my head off at the mantra of universal compassion, imagining a giant spider is about to appear from outer space. The planet Metebelis 3, to be precise. So I had to unpack and unlearn the silliness of that recollection and come to ask the questions that needed to be asked, and also, more importantly, feel, not remember. I had to be present too and not be overlaying, yes, but this is what the priest did, yes, but this is what's in Doctor Who, yes, but. You have to be really open to be present and ask the questions and make good friendships. So now I don't laugh. Yeah. And your other question was about approaching enlightenment.
Yeah.
Can you be more precise about that?
Well, I think when we talk about enlightenment, the idea is that, meditation is effectively the way to enlightenment, and obviously you practice for years and years, you practice, ethics, meditation and wisdom, you're trying to become wiser and kinder. And you work with your mind, you purify your mind. It's very rarely talked about which role ritual plays in enlightenment.
Can you just define meditation again?
Sorry. The idea of meditation that we have in our minds, which is basically just sitting on the mat rather than, which is basically just sitting on the mat or on the Bodhi tree.
You said this thing about purifying your mind.
Yes. Yes, okay.
I think you've just answered your own question.
Yeah, I think I've just answered my own question, yes. We can purify our mind anyway, even in ritual.
Yes.
Particularly in ritual. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And can we approach enlightenment through ritual? I think yes. I'm going to walk through very briefly what's under the words in the Sevenfold Puja, and this might be a way for us to come to a close.
Sure.
Is it? So, the Sevenfold Puja, this is particularly relevant to you, Cal, isn't it? Is a ritual that I've recently discovered is actually much older than Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, for those of you who are familiar with that. So the structure, the words that come to us from the Sevenfold Puja do come from Shantideva's 7th century Bodhicharya Avatara. However, the form of that ritual, the structures, the 7 parts of that ritual, actually come from an earlier text. They come from a chapter called the Gandhavya Sutra, which comes from the Avatamsaka Sutra. And inside that is a thing called the King of Aspiration Prayers. And the King of Aspiration Prayers is the structure of the Sevenfold Puja. To distill down what each of the stages are, and this is like basic. The first stage in the practice, I like to add, and I think it's really important, like stage 0, if you will, is that recollection, that reverence to what brought you to the Dharma, and the gratitude that you may feel for that. That is the key piece of preparation, to be in contact with why you practice and remembering that and honouring it. Worship, the first verse. This is when you treasure that. You want it to be more beautiful, more present, more seen. And so in the verses of the puja, it's all about lamps and flowers and garlands and all these delightful treasures, right? In that first verse of the puja, I am reflecting on the fact that there is beauty in what I do, there is beauty in what other people do, and those things that they do ennoble and adorn the Dharma. They adorn it. Yeah. So that first verse is all about treasuring and honouring that which has brought you and other people on the path. Yeah, it doesn't have to be with being things festooned with golden lotus. Yeah. The second verse, which is called Salutation, is offering respect to that. So this second verse I often think of as being, okay, I make this thing beautiful, this quality, this moment, this aspect of enlightenment that I have come into contact with. I want to treasure it in that first, and that second, I want to turn to it. I want to keep looking at it. I want to keep remembering it. And the third verse, the going for refuge, I want to act from that. I want to act from that. I want to turn to that and act from it. Yeah? And the precepts are the way I can act in the world through that. And then I have to look at myself. Then I have to have an honest appraisal of who I am, what I have done. Because that is also going for refuge with me. That is part of my narrative, that is part of my story. That may even be part of my ancestors' story. Yeah? That has to be seen. And there has to be a sense that there are parts of this that are holding me back. There are parts of this that will not lead me closer to enlightenment. They will not help me approach enlightenment at all. And I'm going to say, thank you for what you've taught me. I am now going to let you go. Then we celebrate. Rejoicing in merit. I've done awesome things on this path. I have changed. I have grown. But more importantly, so are the people in my community. And so are the people throughout history who have made such significant changes in their lives and grown towards growing closer to the goal itself. And then, from that, may it never leave me. May it never leave other people around me. Entreaty and supplication. May this be a lifeblood for me. May this be a lifeblood for everyone around me. May it never just fade into being a hobby or a thing that I do with nice people. Not that that's a bad thing, but I don't want it to just be Tuesday night, Thursday night I do Buddhism, Wednesday night pickleball. I want it to be something more than that. Then we give it up. Everything that we've done is for everyone else's benefit. Yes, we've benefited, but we don't cling to it, and more importantly, we don't aim for any reward. We aren't praying to Buddha to get me through my exams. Yeah? Some traditions do that. That has more in contact with sort of animist practices in a way, and we give it up, and then we have the concluding mantras. So, treasuring, respecting, acting, facing up, looking, celebrating, releasing. And you don't have to do the sevenfold puja to do those. You could just act that way. That's what the book's about. And I think I've answered those questions.
Thank you, Bodhidasa. Thank you so much, Bodhidasa. I speak for myself, but I think I can speak for all of us that we're probably more other regarding having met you than we were an hour and a half ago. I think I am. And your book's a guide, it's a guide to enlightenment. But I think you're a guide too. I think, well, again, I can't speak for all of you, but I feel as I have an opportunity to be guided somewhere by you, and I'm really, really grateful that you've come here and guided us tonight. Thank you. We have something. There's just something on the table out there. Would you just help me with it? It's just a couple of things. Let's see how organised we are doing this. But yeah, I just want to give you a small something.
Okay. Don't have to. I'm happy just to give.
Oh, jumped in there. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Tim Tam!
Tim Tams! The world to know is that Tim Tams.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
oh wow. You know I can't take this back into the country because
Yes,
of
I do.
quarantine. They won't let me. What am I going to do with it? Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, you left the price on it as well.
I know. I thought you might see just how much I appreciate you. So, thank you very much.
Has anyone never had a Tim Tam? Has anyone never had one?
Don't even know what they are.
All right, we're opening. Of course they are. We're opening these. Are we able to transfer merits?
Yes, yes. Would
So,
you lead us in that?
I will. Not everyone will know it. So does everyone know it? No.
You can do it cool.
No, I'll do it in call and response. But before we do that, we should probably just contact what's going on in the words and in any feelings we might be having or even any aspirations we might be having. Just try and meet those. And honour them, even if it's just questions, honouring the questions. And we're going to make this a benefit to everyone as best we can. Transference of merit in call and response. May the merit gained
May the merit gained
in my acting thus
in my acting thus
go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences,
My personality throughout my existences,
my possessions,
my possessions,
and my merit in all three ways.
and my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself,
I give up without regard to myself,
for the benefit of all beings.
for the benefit of all beings.
Just as the earth and other elements
Just as the earth and other elements
are serviceable in many ways
are serviceable in many ways
to the infinite number of beings,
to the infinite number of beings,
inhabiting limitless space,
inhabiting limitless space,
so may I become
so may I become
that which maintains all beings,
that which maintains all beings,
situated throughout space,
situated throughout space,
so long as all have not attained
so long as all have not attained
to peace.
to peace. And Bodhidasa will be signing copies of this fantastic book outside at reception. So some of you have bought a copy already. He can sign those copies for you. And if you haven't bought one and you'd like to, there'll be an opportunity to do that. Just before we go out and say a final goodbye to Bodhidasa, if you've contributed to the class, if you've been in a position to contribute some money to the class tonight, we're very, very grateful. If you are in a position to contribute something to the class, but you haven't yet, then you're more than welcome. There'll be some bowls outside, please do. And if you're not in a position to contribute financially to this class, then you are contributing very, very much by your presence here tonight. And this class is very much your class. And thank you all for coming, and thank you very, very much, Bodhidasa, once again.